Welcome to another episode of Crossing the Finish Line. So I want to be very open and transparent about this episode. There's a backstory to it. In fact, there's a very big backstory to it. So I had planned to include a link in this episode to an interview I had 9 months ago. Yes, 9 months ago, with an amazing woman, a 103-year young woman, mom, grandmother, and she was the gold medalist at the National Senior Games. And her name is Julia Hurricane Hawkins. But I can't put that link in here because I'm still having technical difficulties with the final edit. The interview with Julia was amazing. It was very long. It was about 3 hours long. And, you know, you would think somebody that's like 103 years old, maybe they would be kind of, maybe, you know, the idea would be maybe they'd be doddering, maybe they would lose their thoughts, lose, you know, where they were, have a bad memory. Literally from the time I started talking with Julia to the time it ended, she almost talked the whole entire time. The challenge was the audio was really bad, really bad. But what Julia shared was priceless. So I was so excited about what she was sharing that I really wanted this podcast to be perfect. And I've only been doing podcasts for a year, and I'm not a technical expert, and I'm learning the process. And so, and I've learned this from Gary Vaynerchuk that, you know, one of the challenges that a lot of us have in anything we're doing, we don't want to look bad. And so we'll do anything we can to not post something that looks bad or sounds bad or whatever. And I was really guilty of that. So chances are you probably read about Julia in People Magazine or Time Magazine or Running Magazine. I mean, literally, her accomplishments have been all over the place because, you know, not too often does somebody's 103 and they win 2 races in even the Senior Olympics games. So, but she did. So when we reached out to her and I got a chance to interview her, I really wanted to find out kind of more about what was behind the woman than it was what her physical accomplishments were, because everybody was writing that story, interviewing about that, and it was great. But I kind of wanted to know, like, how was this woman able to do what she did? How was it she was so still vital after all these years? So I did the interview. As I said, it was kind of long. The sound wasn't great. And I have literally had this interview sitting on the shelf for 9 months. And then 3 months ago, we went back and we started to edit it. And we were like, yeah, we're going to work on this. And we started editing things and slicing things together. And it still was a little bit confusing, a little bit rambling. And it was kind of hard to hear because the sound of my voice at a certain tone and her tone. And like I said, I was on a digital line, she was on a landline. So I just wasn't pleased with where it was coming out. And so I just put it on the shelf. So not knowing what I wanted to do, I do what I always tend to do. I procrastinated. So literally, here's a woman that's lived this very long life. She's got a great story to tell. I'm sure she could live a very long time, but God forbid something happened to her. Like, I never got the story out there. And she's still alive and doing very well. And she actually would have run in another Senior Games, but because of the coronavirus, they canceled those games. So what have I been doing, or should I say not doing, about releasing her interview? Reminds me a lot of when I'm wellness navigating people. When I talk with people, there's always something blocking them. There's something where they're waiting till things get to a certain place. Maybe they're waiting to exercise, or they're waiting to lose weight, or they're waiting after a holiday. I have a book that I'm working on right now, one of the books I'm working on, called Weight Loss, W-A-I-T, loss. And I really realized, I kind of laughed to myself because I'm a big proponent of like not waiting forever to do something. Yet it's one of the biggest challenges that I have. I've been a weight loss challenge person my entire life. Besides my physical weight, procrastinating. I have been like an epic procrastinator. So, okay, I'm excited because I talked to production. We're going to get this thing out. And they say, you know, you want to get this thing done with Julia done? And I'm like, you know, you want to get done this week? And I'm like, let's get it done today. So I'm all excited. I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to prep for this, you know, chat with you guys today. And just when I thought it was going to go well, about 30 minutes before I went live today, I'm listening to the latest version. I'm like, I don't think this is it. I think this is the wrong version. And it was like, this is not the right version again. This is like, oh my God, I can't believe once again, this thing has been out there forever and it's still not right. And then I was like, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to delay it. I'm going to just put out there what I can put out and share with you now, because I think it's like anything else. What I really want you to get from this, and you'll get from it when you listen to the whole interview from Julia, is what are we waiting for? Like, I have had such a problem in my life trying to get things perfect. Probably it's my design background. I want things to be just right and look good and whatever. And like I said before, I've learned a lot from Gary Vaynerchuk. Like, he's like, you got to quit trying to see how you look to other people and just get what you're doing out there. So why am I sharing this without it being done or quote unquote perfect? Because I'm taking some of my own medicine. That you not only need to share what's good or great, but also what's bad and even the ugly. So hopefully later today and no later than tomorrow, I'll release an acceptable version of this interview that I have with Julia. And it's shorter. It's not going to be 3 hours. It's shorter with some of the highlights. It certainly probably won't be my best, and it probably still won't be my worst ever. But when I do, when I finally share that link, I can hold my head high knowing that it might have not been pretty, but I did cross that finish line. And until then, I wanted to share with you, as I promised in the post before I did this, what were the three, what I call the three powerful longevity hacks that I got from Julia. And like I said, you'll hear it in the interview with her in the podcast. But what was interesting was these are not what I would call sexy or something that's going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe this. But look, what I'm about to share with you, these three things, if you think about it, this is coming from a woman that, and when she was like in her late 80s, wrote a book called It's Been Wondrous. That's the title of her book. This book is volumes of pictures, of memories, of details. I had said to her in the interview, like, I can't remember what happened to me last week. How are you remembering back in the 30s, the 40s, the 60s? I mean, this woman's prolific. I was like, I cannot believe her brain is as strong as it is. And yet this book is a great example of it. And it's really it's a great story when I talk about creating a life that you love, which she obviously loved her life with her husband and with her children, the things that she's accomplished in her life. Not only has she loved her life and what she shares in this book, but obviously she's lived it well, extremely well. 103 years old, still moving, still vibrant, still competing at 103 frigging years old. So the three things, the three major powerful life hacks, doesn't sound very sexy, but she talks about how much she read. Not only things that she read herself, but she read to her children. She and her husband read together. They would read books back and forth. She also talks in there in the interview about where they bought a volume of 19 books about the history of the world. It took them 2 years, and they read the books back and forth together. She read all the time, constantly, continues to. So whatever was happening there, she was exercising her brain by literally reading voraciously, okay? Not only was she a reader, but she was an amazing writer. She wrote Christmas cards. She wrote letters. She wrote to her kids. She wrote to her husband. She wrote for the town. She wrote everywhere you could think. So she was reading all the time. She was writing all the time. And the thing that was really interesting, she told an interesting story when her husband was in the war, and he wrote tons and tons and tons and tons of letters to her. And what she said was years later, he had passed on, and years later, what was great to her about reading those letters was every time she opened the letter again, and she went back to reading the letter that he wrote when he was in the war, she said in that instant, she felt young. It was like, it just brought back the youth of her whole life, and it brought her back in that time. It's like it was like time travel. So reading was big all the time. Writing was big all the time. No surprise, not sexy, move. The interesting story about Julia was that she actually she was a gardener. She was somebody that walked a lot. She traveled the world. She was always doing something. She was more of a cyclist than she was a runner. And she actually didn't start running until she was 100 years old, because somebody mentioned something to her that it would be kind of fun if she actually at 100 years old ran a 100-meter dash. That's why she did it. That's why she ran that at 100 years old, and then 102, and then this time she was going to run it at 104 until the COVID virus thing happened. So why I wanted to share this with you was here's a case where I had the opportunity to talk to somebody that has had an amazing life 9 months ago. And because I was worried how I would look if I put something out that wasn't good, I literally let that sit there on the shelf for 9 months. And selfishly, I wasn't sharing it with people. I hope what you get from this is that, especially now, more than ever, all of us need to let go of weight loss in terms of waiting to write a book, start a business, give somebody, when you can, hug them, give somebody a hug, send a kind word out. Waiting for something in the future makes no sense when I think now more than ever, all of us realize whether we were unhealthy or healthy, none of us know how long we're going to be here. And so to continue to wait for something in the future, for somebody else to come along and rescue us, is really not a life well lived. So I'm putting this out here. I am promising to myself and to others, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to get it done. And it may not be pretty and it may not be perfect, but I'm just going to get it done. No more waiting 9 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 years, whatever it is. It's get it done, get it out, and keep going on, keep going on, keep going on. That's what Julia did with her life, and she's doing the same exact thing. The woman had no regrets in the conversation, complained about nothing at all, had her own personal challenges, but she never focused on that. She only focused on what she was doing and how she was living her life. So that's it for today's episode. Thanks as always for the generosity of your time listening to this, either later today or tomorrow. It may not be perfect, but I'm going to post a link to that podcast finally and cross the finish line that I should have crossed a long time ago, but better late than never. So I wish you guys well. And until I'm back again, I hope everyone's good. Be safe, be well. See you soon.